Hey guys, welcome to the WPC Plus Fantasy Baseball Podcast. He is Nick, I'm Pierre, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite breakout hitters for the 2021 season, which is slowly creeping towards us. Pitchers and catchers have reported. Spring is almost in the air. It didn't feel like it here in Texas. We just were hit with snow for about a week straight. So it definitely does not feel like spring is in the air. But spring training is in the air, right, Nick?
Oh yeah, it's so close. It kind of snuck up on us a little bit. It shouldn't have. Seems like we've been waiting for a real spring training for a very long time. But yeah, we're pitchers and catchers are there. Like real spring training is starting real soon, and then apparently we're gonna have a normal start to baseball season. So getting real close.
To a normal season, we hope. Yeah,
Yeah.
last we saw it was summer training or spring training 2.0 or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's nice to see. But we know we don't have anything yet, no exhibition games to kind of pull data from. So we're still speculating off of last year's abomination of a 60 game season. But we're also looking beyond that, right? We've got plenty of historical data. So let's talk about what we know for some of these guys. So start with your favorite breakout hitter to start out with, or one of your favorites at least, Nick Madrigal of the White Sox. That's definitely going to be a potent offense. But where do you see him fitting in? I think probably the only concern with him, it's definitely not putting the bat on the ball. It might be where he slots in that lineup. But what do you see for him this year?
Yeah, that is a concern. I mean, he's not going to, eventually he has a leadoff hitter skill set, but right now, there's not room at the top of that White Sox order. So, yeah, he's gonna be batting down in the lineup, but down in that lineup isn't that big a deal. Even if he's batting ninth, which is what kind of he's slotted in, like Luis Roberts batting, going to bat seventh, and Moncada's looks like he's going to be sixth, and it, there's that lineup doesn't have a lot of holes in it. So that I'm not as worried about. I mean, the just raw plate appearances that he'll be racking up, like that's a concern. He's not going to get as many batting at the bottom of the order. But what I really like about Madrigal is just you mentioned already is the hit tool. He Madrigal rakes. He's always hit. He hits everywhere he go. He's just a short guy and doesn't have any pop and whatever. That's fine for me in fantasy because I I'm fairly confident he's going to bat 300. I think he can bat over 300, and for his price, that kind of I think that batting average gives him a lot of upside. Like I know I'm not getting a lot in the other categories. I I think given what his playing time is going to be, how high that average is going to be, I think that's going to be enough to buoy his fantasy value up way over what you're going to pay for him in a draft.
Yeah, and it would be nice too. I think he's got the ability to maybe get to double digit steals. I think the concern is, well, there's a guy named LaRussa in town. Is he going to kind of just squash that? I know we kind of talked about that with Tim Anderson a couple of weeks ago. I mean, do you think he has, also the fact that he might be at the bottom of the lineup, do you think he can at least squeeze in maybe 10 to 12 steals or even more?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think ATC has him for like 15 steals, and I think most of the projection systems have him for double digits. I'm hoping that 10 is kind of the basement there, and I sure in theory he could go over 15, but I'm kind of hoping for that like 12 to 15 sweet spot. But like you said, like you never know. Or Tony Relusa, he may just not play Madrigal because he's under 30, so he'll just refuse to play him. So there is the Larusa factor you have to consider, but yeah, I think double digit steals is a pretty safe floor for him.
All right. I mean, talk about 300 batting average, double digit steals. That right there gives him pretty good value. But yeah, I had to squeeze a Larissa reference in there to the Cardinals fans just to get a quick take there. All right, I'm gonna stay at the Keystone there in second base, a guy who everybody knows, also a top prospect here, but Gavin Lux. of the Dodgers. So, look, I know we expected big things last year, and it was pretty much the opposite. Got off to a not even slow, non-existent start. He just didn't appear with the club. He wasn't ready. They said not prepared, and then some throwing issues. I mean, obviously, we're hoping this isn't Steve Sachs 2.0. I don't think we're near that territory yet, but obviously that's got to worry you. And they're talking about maybe he has to move to left field. But look, this is a guy who's got plus power in the middle of infield, and I think what makes me a little more bullish on him, not just that he should be a little bit more mature and more prepared, and obviously with the normalcy supposedly of this year, but also there's going to be less competition because the Dodgers have been moving a lot of people around. Kike Hernandez is gone, right? So there's not a threat there at second base. Jock Peterson's gone from the outfield, so I think Chris Taylor will kind of still fill that utility role. They don't want him to be the everyday second baseman. Not they want Gavin Lux to be the everyday second baseman. The opportunity's there. We know the talent is there. Is he going to take advantage? Well, obviously that's the question. But I mean, you can't tell me he's definitely a guy that's not worth where he's going. I think outside the top 150 overall, probably even some drafts you can get him closer to pick 200, realistically somewhere in between. But I mean, it's got to be worth it at that point in the draft, right?
Yeah, no, he's actually his ADP has really plummeted. He's well past 200.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, the skills I like. He's got the prospect pedigree is former number one prospect in the Dodger organization, and a lot of just all around prospect list. And last year was a disaster. I think he batted like 179 and a 68 WRC plus. It's not I don't disbelieve in him. I he's got tremendous power, like especially in second base eligible. Brings a skill set that not a lot of second basemen have. But I know that the Dodgers have cleared out some people, but I still really worry about the playing time. I really like Chris Taylor. I think he just keeps being good, and I don't think they want him to be their full time. The Dodgers have like they have a very deep deep bench, and besides Lux, there's also Edwin Rios that they're going to want to get time as well, and I think Lux will get plenty of playing time, but I think it's going to be like in the 450 to 500 plate appearances type of playing time, and that's not quite good enough. But like you said, the draft price is so low at this point, and you know if he moves in, if any situation with Lux moves into a full time role, the upside is certainly there considering the price. It's just that's my concerns. Like that's what has to happen for him to get that full time role.
Yeah, definitely. But like you said, since if the ADP has gone that far down, if you're not depending on him really to be a starter, either he's going to be a middle infielder in a deep league or maybe even just a bench guy. There's not many guys past that range where they have that potential, I guess. But yeah, maybe I have a bad habit of buying too much into the tools, which is why I had Byron Buxton on too many teams for the past 3 years, and will not ever have him again. But that's a different story. All right, hey, speaking of the Twins, look, here you go. Your next guy is somebody who's always underrated, and correct me if I'm wrong. Second straight year projected by ATC to lead the majors in batting average. So Luis Arraez, but the question here, I think, is kind of what we just talked about, is also playing time. Where do you see him fitting in with the Twins? Do you think he's mostly an everyday guy?
Yeah, I do. I think it's that a little more things got thrown into flux a little bit more with the signing of Anderson Simmons. So now but the way the Twins have signaled it seems like with those guys, they're going to have Arraez and Jorge Polanco and Simmons kind of rotating a little bit on around the infield. And indications seem to be that Arraez is going to be the primary out of those that's going to get the lion's share. And so yeah, there is concerns, but he doesn't have any split issues. He has just an off the charts hit tool. I believe you're right. ATT has projected in the past 2 years to lead the league in batting average, and he kind of like the same thing that I was saying with Madrigal is that I know exactly he was. I really liked him going into last year. Battled some injuries, only played 32 games, 121 plate appearances, batted 321 because he always bats over 300. That's what he does. Batted 334 in 2019 over 366 plate appearances. Minor leagues, it's just the same story. Like that's he's going to hit 300, and maybe not like a full-time role with the Twins, but a full enough time role. And when he plays, it's going to be out of the two hole probably. I suppose the last year's a little further down the order oftentimes, but the batting average is going to be there in spades. His spot in the order with some good hitters around him is going to ensure plenty of the other counting stats. His ADP is very cheap. So yeah, I much like last year, I'm gonna have Arraez on most of my teams.
Yeah, and he's definitely not a guy who's you're gonna have to reach for in drafts. This is some more savvy statisticians. If you're in an expert league, then yeah, the people will be hip to him. But in most drafts, he's more of an afterthought. But that's interesting. A lot of people
He got
think
a 417 ADP, right?
four. Okay, well,
crazy. Yeah, just insane, it's insane ADP right now. So
wow.
People don't believe. I'll go ahead and people were kind of on him last year. I remember his ADP was in like you had to get him around pick 200 or so if you wanted to guarantee to have him because a lot of people were hip to like, oh man, this batting average is like this is a lock of batting average, and then that's what happens when he doesn't explode on the scene because he only plays in 35 games, but everything you drafted him for last year he kind of did. Lots of batting average and decent counting stats. So I expect more of the same this year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expect that Polanco is just going to take over to second base, and then Arraez will either kind of have to move around the diamond, or some people think, well, he's have to play left field. If a guy like Kirilloff doesn't assume that role, which is very possible, and that's still fine. Like it doesn't really matter where he plays as long as he gets to the plate. But yeah, I think they'll find a way to get his bat in the lineup. That's definitely a lineup kind of like the White Sox you want a piece of. So a smart pick. Maybe not a lineup you really want a piece of, but let's go to Cleveland here. I like Josh Naylor, and I'll tell you, as a Marlins fan, I'm very familiar. He's joining the long list of former top Marlins prospects that will certainly thrive somewhere else. But besides that, like I feel like he's been around forever. He's only 23 years old, but this is a guy who, I mean, he's not really a pure power prospect, but he's got the ability. He's got the ability to drive the ball. The thing is, he's shown great plate discipline. He only struck out, I think 11% of the time last year. Not a big sample, of course, but still, all throughout the minors, well under 20% strikeout rate. So that's not an issue. The issue is, does he have the power? Well, we haven't really seen enough of him yet, but he's going to get the chance. It looks like he might play every day. There's not a whole lot of competition left there, but also he could be batting fifth. That's what Roster Resource has him at right now. Batting at fifth, Franmil Reyes, I think, is now suffering some sort of an ankle injury. If he's out, then we could see Naylor in the cleanup spot. But it's interesting, our own Mike Kurland of Bases Loaded podcast, he pointed out, he's our batting stance guru, right? He loves to dissect all the changes in batting stances. I don't know how he gets all this, but he pointed out that Naylor kind of opened up his stance more when he went to Cleveland, and that might help him drive the ball a little farther too. So kind of all those factors combined, this is a high-end prospect from years ago. He's still got that pedigree. I think all of these factors might make him a guy that, again, you can get for almost nothing at this point, and he could definitely help you out. But do you think that it could come all together for him this year?
Yeah, for that, start at the same place. It's like you don't have to pay very much to find out. Like that's the best thing about Josh Naylor is the draft price is nothing. It's post pick 400, after pick 450. Even in deep 15 team leagues, like you can get Josh Naylor whenever you want to. And the other good thing is another thing you mentioned, no competition for playing time at all, and batting in the middle of the order behind, if Reyes when he's healthy, and Eddie Rosario, who we've talked about many times, another player I really like. So locked in playing time, middle of the order, like that's a really good start, and low draft cost, like right there. That's like the trinity of not paying very much for a guy batting in the middle of the order is usually a good thing. And nothing about his stats jump off the page, but at the same time, he's going to give you a little bit of everything. He's, even if the power isn't fully unlocked, like you're going to get double digit home. ATP has him for 13 home runs. I'm a little more bullish than that. 260, 270 average, decent counting stats. Like I said, the lineup will help determine that. Yeah, I think Naylor's a fine pick. Like I'll take a little end of the draft flyer on him. And looking at his power stats, we talk about the different exit velocity stuff a lot. His barrel rate did drop and went from the 36th percentile to down to the 14th percentile. But looking at fly balls, line drives hit over 100 miles per hour, he went from the 44th percentile to the 75th percentile. That's a jump you like to see with someone you're hoping for a little more power out of. So yeah, combine the price, the situation, not killing you in any one area. Yeah, I think Naylor's a fine little flyer that could return some really easy profits.
And that's exactly it. What I like is that he's not going to sink you if you put him in your lineup for a couple week stretch. He's not a guy you think sure he's got power upside, but he's going to kill your batting average. He hasn't shown that. He's
Yeah,
not a guy who's going to strike out 30% of the time. So that's a safe flyer, I guess you could say. But we didn't define these are all we call breakout candidates. We're not going to waste time defining what a breakout is because that everyone's going to have their own opinion there. But let's just put it this way: these are guys who haven't quite, reached their potential yet, and they could. There's plenty of potential here, so let's keep going with that theme. And a guy who kind of started to look like he might break out. Who knows what had happened had he not gotten hurt, but also if the season were longer. And so you like Jeimer Candelario in Detroit. Um, Former third baseman now, I guess, qualifying at first base too. I'm assuming he's retaining third base eligibility, though I guess it depends where you're playing.
yeah,
So they did add Renato Nunez, which is interesting because now that's some competition at the corners. I'm assuming that Paredes is going to stay in the minors. But you think Candelario holds down the job there, and what is it you like about him specifically?
yeah. I think he does hold down the job. That part I'm not that worried about. Kind of much like Naylor. Candelario is. I don't think he has much of a playing time concern. When he plays, it's going to be he's going to be hitting cleanup more than likely, fourth maybe fifth, and on a Detroit team that is not very good. But I talked before. I like boring guys like that. I like you know guys batting in the middle of the order that fine, be on a bad team, you're still going to rack up plenty of plate appearances. And so besides that, I like the skills of Candelario. You said he, kind of thought there was going to be a breakout last year, had some injuries, hit 7 home runs in his 206 plate appearances. But looking at the exit velocities, there were a lot of good things in his game. He went from barrel rate went from the 33rd percentile to 70th percentile. Average exit velocity on fly balls went from the 17th percentile to the 89th percentile. Uh, Balls hit in the air at over 100 miles per hour, 42nd percentile to the 86th those are large jumps and and going from like the mediocre, not just like a little above mediocre, but into that more elite territory, the over 80th, 85th percentile. So really like that. Really like the playing time and just like we were talking about with Naylor, he's not going to kill you in any category. ATC is a little bit down on him. Only has him for like 19 home runs. I have him projected for 24, 25 home runs. That's not crazy. That's about what I think Steamer has him for 24 home runs. But I see him as a guy that's going to be close to 25 home runs, 80 runs, 80 RBIs, and a 260, 265 average. None of that sounds exciting, and 550 plate appearances or whatever. But that's how you build a top 75 batter, like as far as total value goes. And Candelario's ADP right now is 250, 260. That's at a position I already have a lot of questions about the guys at the top. Like Candelario guys definitely going to be targeting this draft.
Yeah, and I think the natural concern is being on a team like Detroit. Is he going to hurt you with runs and RBI production? But if he can get to 80 in each of those categories, along with the power there, and he's not going to hurt you in average, I mean, you're looking at basically a 4 category contributor. I mean, that's pretty good for basically an end of the bench bat. So yeah, he's definitely getting slept on. A little bit almost like a post hype sleeper because a couple years ago was expected to kind of come on and didn't, but I mean, he's still pretty young, so let's cut him some slack. And then my final guy, I like, who I'm going to probably own way too much of, very young here, I believe only 22, is Leody Taveras in Texas. And this guy projected to bat leadoff right now. We'll see if that is the case come opening day. But here's the thing. Look, we've talked about everybody's trying to get speed early, right? We see Trey Turner's ADP creeping up. People are, trying to stockpile all the stolen bases they can in the first couple rounds. Well, if you're not doing that, or if you just want to wait because, you don't want to overpay for steals, this is one of the guys I'm targeting, not just because of speed, but he's also got pop. He could get to 15, maybe 20 homers if he plays a full season. But look, here's the thing. He's going to get you steals as long as he's in the lineup. Besides the fact he's leading off, 96th percentile sprint speed. This is a team, the Texas Rangers, who stole or attempted the fourth most stolen bases per game last season and led the league in 2019. Remember Elvis Andrus? Remember him? All right, now with Oakland. It's a guy who 2 years ago, despite having sub-league average sprint speed at that time, I'm not even counting last year, right? Last year, we're just going to pretend Andrus didn't exist because it kind of didn't. But even 2 years ago, he had a 46 percentile sprint speed, and he managed to steal 31 bases. Okay, I think Taveras can do that because he attempted 8 steals last year and he was successful every single time. He's got the instincts, he's got the speed, he's got the opportunity. I mean, I don't see any reason not to draft him basically everywhere because it's like Malik Smith with power. I mean, am I going crazy here?
No, I don't think so. I really like Tavares too. Being taken around a 200 ADP for like you said it, Texas love. They're gonna let you run. Like if you want to run, they're gonna let you run. If you don't like to run, they're still gonna make you run. And Tavares batting lead off on a mediocre offense. Like give me all of it. You look at projections and they're good. Like ATC is most bullish on him with speed, 24 stolen bases and 500, but 540 plate appearances, and the bats, 20 less plate appearances, but way down on steals, only 13 steals. And I prefer I think ATC is closer to it on speed and depth charts. Depth charts has him for something similar around 22 stolen bases, but I think he's going to have a lot more plate appearances than 540. If we've talked before about my stuff on expected plate appearances and just how many times you're going to come to the plate if you are batting leadoff for a team all year. And if Tavares is going to do that, even for a mediocre offense like Texas, I think 540 plate appearances is extremely low. I think that's being very pessimistic on how much you think he's going to play. And if he's going to be an everyday guy batting leadoff, like I think that's 600 PA or greater, and that means that's 30 stolen bases, or in that range at least for Tavares. And he doesn't kill you other places. He's gonna, 250 batting average, and counting stats won't be crazy because of aforementioned mediocre offense, but they won't be terrible because he'll be batting leadoff. So yeah, I really like Tavares. Like I'll pay a lot more than an ADP 200 price for him. I'd pay more of a premium on him, and I'll go out of my way to reach for him because the floor is the stolen bases. I know I'm going to get that from him, which at that point in the draft is, 25 stolen bases is very, very useful. But the ceiling is, I think, quite a bit more just because of, not necessarily we're misjudging the talent, just misjudging the playing time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did talk about that last year, the expected plate appearances. But like even so, like you said, they're going to let him run. This is a team that let's not pretend that they're even considering contending this year. It's obvious they're not. They're going to let this guy play. They're going to let him run, which is why also not for redraft quite so much, but I'm probably way too high also on Anderson Tejeda if he gets a chance to earn some playing time. I'm just saying, keep an eye out if he gets the call.
He hits the ball really hard.
Oh man, I'll be all over him.
Yeah,
All right.
I like him too.
Um, and it's Tejeda, not Tejada, because I hear that a lot. A lot of people mixing it up. We talk about projections a lot, of course, throughout draft season. That we're going to refer to them, but of course, all these projection systems are kind of conservative by nature. We're talking about potential breakouts. These are guys that we think could well surpass those projections, and this is why we're identifying them. So we're also going to talk about pitchers, so catch that video as well. Give us a thumbs up, and of course, hit subscribe if you haven't already. We're here all season long, especially draft season, to help you win. All right, thanks for watching.